Is it future or is it past? I understand. Anyway, here we go. We are moving right along with some questions here. Matthew's got a question for us. Uh, Ebbs and flows is my response. Okay, trends. We see a lot of trends playing out with increased media consumption. I paraphrased the question. Sure, you know what? We will continue to see rises until the market is saturated. Is the truth? It depends on ebbs and flows, market demand, affordability, saturation, and speed. What is the speed? This is one of the ways they're able to keep selling us certain technologies is because they get faster, they get more efficient, the visuals get brighter, what Baudrillard called the hyperreal, in which image, sound, mass media, it becomes more real than real, right? Better than real. Spectacle, as Guy Debord would say. Society of the spectacle. Oh, those uses and gratifications that Berger simplifies for us in his messages. All right, vicious cycle. Some of you picked up on this vicious cycle idea. I love that. I love that these kinds of buzzwords will light these little match fires. The vicious cycle described in chapter 1 is a very scary scenario to think about. What, as parents, could be done to avoid children growing up with these types of burdens? Great question. We'll like the ethical questions. Keep them coming, everyone. We can learn to put severe limits on young people at an early age, and again, and not to push it off. Types of questions we engage in a couple of different courses. Some of our social media built courses. We'll tackle some similar content, and we have a media law and ethics class that's undergoing a continued revising and update to tackle digital concerns. But we can practice discipline ourselves, and we can practice discipline in front of others. You hear these stories about people that will have a basket in their home with the dinner party. Please put your phone in the basket. Movie theaters try to tell us to not just shh, but turn your phones off, and that can be quite annoying. Some use it as argument for why we go to the theater less and less. But in terms of young people, we're a walking influence, so we have to at some point be able to demonstrate a positive example, not just tell them you do as I say, not as I do. But we need to be active agents, independently seeking information on changes, on research, this is why news can be important for us. Sometimes I hear a lot of contemporary folks, millennials, our favorite word of the week, say, "Oh, I hate news. I don't like the news. I don't like to read news. I'm not interested in all that. I just turn it off. Local weather only for me." And that can be discouraging. Wool, as I say in the Hickish accent, because news can be discouraging sometimes. News can be discouraging sometimes, and but it's equally discouraging to shut off some of that information flow. What we can learn is, there are some mellow news organizations out there, right? NPR, they may be a little bit quiet, a little bit dry, but you know what? There's something to that mellow approach that's relatively, it's left of center, but it attempts objectivity. There's a refinement to the way they present information. PBS NewsHour, same way, right? There are so many competing news voices out there. I feel like this is going to go in a negative direction. I was about to say, you can find the one that fits you, but that's a really not not the kind of advice I would like to suggest. Actually, having a broad strategic healthy sampling of various sources gives us a centered approach to information gathering and can help us choose. But a lot of people don't have time for that sort of thing, so we find ourselves in a catch-22 and letting our kids, watch the iPad till their eyes are bloodshot. But don't do that. Right? Start with the tablets, the small digital devices, LED screens. Severely limit and cut those uses, and that's a healthy start there. Unmonitored, too much unmonitored screen time, not necessarily the direction we want to go. McLuhan's "The medium is the message" theory is famous for its view on media. The idea is that the study of the medium is the best way to understand media. Does this argument hold true in today's digital age? We've seen a McLuhan resurgence in recent years, not unlike the Matthew McConaissance. But McLuhan is still valuable, and his ideas have swung back around in a big way. I've seen it at conferences. Elite thinkers, they're all recognizing the values he brought in those early writings, and so always worth reconsider. I'm gonna have to find a way to budget some of his more influential works into one of our upper level classes. Great exposure that we could have there, and pivotal to anyone studying media. Okay, finally, questions from Aaron. And we're going to start with one from relating to Berger, Media and Society. In Chapter 1, will you explain and give example of responsive chord theory on page 16? And thinking about responsive chord theory, and Berger doesn't go into a ton of detail in some of these theories, but he's a gatekeeper, right? He's opening the door for us to then, we're able to follow through if we like, and go check that out. But think about how jingles inoculate brands into our heads, right? There's certain jingles you were exposed to at any age, really, but the sound of it, the music, the information, it's stuck. Okay, and so a jingle's something where you may forget you ever heard that commercial 1,000 times, right? And years go by, and then someone strikes the chord and that jingle plays, and you immediately know the words, and now perhaps you even ascribe a sort of warm, fuzzy, dare we say, nostalgic feeling for that. There's this kind of responsive chord theory loosely connects here, where dropping something down the well on a rope, so that we can easily retrieve it later for the right type of usage and the right type of strategic placement, might be a metaphorical way of talking about that. Would it be fair to say that media has taken the place of the ruling class in a modern society? I got distracted there. Media has taken the place of the ruling class in a modern version of the hegemonic ideological domination. I'm feeling the urge to go back and reread Orson Scott Card's Shadow Saga now. Mass media certainly has a larger piece of the pie, but but 100 years ago, you had newspaper magnates, right? And they were making mega fortunes and having all of this persuasive power the same way a Rupert Murdoch does now with, all of his media companies he buys across the globe. And so, mass media has always been a powerful tool since its advent, capable of social influence in a large scale. But the ruling class, speaking of Rupert Murdoch, but who's funding the media, right? So someone's always funding the media. PBS, PBS stands for Public Broadcasting System. And that public's the key reason they sometimes have those marathons where they're asking you for money. It's like awkward. But otherwise, everyone's kind of in it for profit. And that can lead to some ethical concerns from time to time and skew some of the news coverage that's hit up. But in all seriousness, I'm pretty sure the top 1 to 3 percenters tend to have a controlling say on some of the media decisions that sort of go out, the way information gets shared, when it gets shared, how it gets shared, through what mechanisms, what channels, what mediums. So it is important. I think I made a Game of Thrones reference earlier in an earlier lecture today. I believe I called it Game of Phones. But that type of popular culture text is not unlike a way to think about how our modern media systems work. Because if you can connect the tissue between all the interrelated players, right, and follow those channels and the power moves made, you're going to have a greater understanding for the larger context of how information gets sort of created and disseminated. Yeah. I'm going to skip ahead here for time's sake. According to McLuhan's hot and cool media theory, TV is considered a cool medium in contrast to movies, which are a hot medium. Would it be more accurate to consider television a hot medium today, going by McLuhan's definition? Hot and cool terms, they're interesting to think about. Again, this is one of the things where I was answering Ezel and someone else's questions about theories in general, about how sometimes they provide answers and sometimes they become outdated, but even in their outdated mode, they still have value. That's McLuhan. He's writing from an outdated time, most of his key writings, but they still have value today. And we can find new uses for things that no longer serve the same purpose. All right, and so the hot and cool terms are a way to think about that. But also, television proper is still cool, but all of these mediums can warm and cool, follow me here, based on the pipes, right? Based on how those pipes are laid out. And we can think of the pipes that control the flow of hot and cold water as these sort of, the internet, the broadband, the speed of the Wi-Fi, social media. And so the mechanisms have changed, but some of the plumbing's still the same. Does that make sense? Blowing minds here, probably just my own. Though rare, can you give an example of a sign with a near universal consensual meaning? What about the smiley face, right? That smiley face emoji or smiley face sticker, bumper sticker. There's a reason it was kind of a ubiquitous color, non-human, but human features, because it's universal. It can be universally recognized. And I think close to that, a cross has a couple of indelibly strong, iconic aspects to them. Certain colors sometimes can, but not always the case. And as divided as today's media and population are today, does a hegemonic viewpoint still exist in today's media? Absolutely. Everything or nothing. YouTube video, documentary we watched. Would this documentary be considered interpretive noise? I like this suggestion. Thank you all for tuning in or tuning out, as my statistics tell me, and we will talk with you next week.